very warm welcome to Making Space for GCE. Nick Doran is my name, and I am the Programme Manager for Saolta, which is the strategic partnership for Global Citizenship Education in the adult and community education sector, which is generously supported and funded by Irish Aid. I want to introduce our keynote speaker of the day. Kathleen Lynch is a Professor Emerita of Equality Studies at University College Dublin. She's an activist and an academic who has devoted her life to promoting equality, social justice and human rights, and has published numerous books on capitalism and its impact on society's capacity for care. Please put your hands together and join me in welcoming to the stage Kathleen Lynch.
Thank you very much, Nick. I'm honoured to be here and very happy to speak. It always surprises me when people talk about sustainability and development, or the Anthropocene, or the need for social justice. They don't talk about capitalism. And capitalism is not the only cause of injustice, but it's a very significant one. I'm going to talk about the logics and ethics of capitalism, because if you're talking about a new world order or global citizenship in a different frame, I think a lot of the time we don't recognise that capitalism has its own ethics. It is not devoid of ethics, and its logic and its implications. And in particular, I'll talk about neoliberal capitalism and its the dominant ideology of the 21st century. In the early 20th century, it is fascinating to know that the poorest half of people in the world, poorest 50%, are now in living conditions in terms of income which were worse than they were in 1820 before colonisation. That is truly extraordinary. So you can see what imperialism and colonisation has done is, of course, to enrich the global north and west, and we're part of that in Richmond here in Ireland. We benefit from the coattails of American capitalism in particular, and we live off the impoverishment of a lot of humanity. And since 1995 in particular, the global wealth possessed by the extremely wealthy, the top 1% there, as you can see, has increased significantly, especially during the pandemic. And people forget is the oligarchic rich exercise enormous political power. We see it in the American election campaign, but it also happens in Europe. They are detached from the nation state. That's something that people have forgotten. The oligarchic rich, the supremely wealthy, are not tied to nation states anymore. They don't have allegiance to nation states, and their wealth is not situated in nation states. They can move it at the click of a button.
We're joined today by Stephanie Kieran, Chief Operation Officer with Meet Partnership, Dennis Leonard, Principal of Dunboyne College of Further Education, and Finola Carter from Solace.
Schedule and time, say, as practitioners, for allowing that critical reflection space, whether it be schedule and time for, reflection sessions amongst our staff, just having that time to sit together over a cup of tea. And what did you kind of find beneficial this last month? What did you learn? What was your aha moment this month? Where do we create those spaces? And if they're not in the diaries, we know that they don't happen. And that's a massive thing, is that, our diaries are so full every hour of every day.
What we're talking about really is culture and ethics. And the only way that we're going to, make change is by finding space to have those critical conversations with colleagues, with partners, with, whoever it be. And I know certainly within Adult Literacy for Life, sharing and making visible some of the really good stuff that's happening, which is difficult, but it's really, really important to make that visible so that we can kind of hold up a mirror to ourselves and see how we do stuff better.
I was very struck by Kathleen's point about the professions. The more and more people that go through education, particularly into higher education, become part of a profession, they actually become subordinated. They lose their radical edge. They fit into modes of being in a profession, so much of which, as Kathleen said, is supporting the division of society. I just wondered what the panel would feel about that notion.
Not what we learned in school when I was there was you were learned to learn off. And then there was the education where you learned so you could actually discuss and debate. And then there was education where you actually could be empowered to act. That's what global citizenship is. It just falls into that whole area. Like I mentioned, the software, I think it was Martin Luther King once said, that we were given technology, which is power, but we're also given morality, which is control. And like AI is great when it's used appropriately. So we need more people coming in who are responsible, who understand where, the smallest act makes a big difference, that we're global citizens, we're not just citizens of Ireland or Europe, that we think broader.
Breakout Room 1 is going to be focusing on global citizenship education resources. Breakout Room 2 is on the GCE Global Compass, which I had mentioned earlier. And Breakout Room 3 is about GCE capacity building. We're very, very lucky to have Ellen Corby from LYCS, who is going to come up and talk a little bit about the STAR Awards. So their projects that they put in for the STAR Awards, put in for and won last year. So please give Ellen Corby a round of applause.
Our STAR Award we won for a project that put together a play that was performed live as a radio play and also recorded, and that play was called Threads, and it was workshopped and written by a community group, an adult ed group of people who'd come together who a lot didn't have any experience of drama before, and it was a GCE drama group, so designed to discuss GCE related issues. And again, it was a group who a lot of them had not had that experience before or weren't really aware of GCE as a concept. And so it was bringing it to them through working through the arts. I think that methodology is what was really beneficial and worked really, really well, because what does drama do? Well, working through basic drama exercises with the group improves everybody's overall communication skills and confidence in putting across ideas, but also it brings the whole group together. It creates a better group dynamic and better group communication. And also, it helps us to express different viewpoints. And the great thing with drama is that it welcomes conflict. Conflict isn't a scary thing, actually. Conflict, it drives the plot in theatre. It's the thing that really drives conversation and difference in opinions. So working through drama, you kind of take a lot of that fear of conflict in the room and actually welcome it, welcome different opinions, and we're not afraid of those opinions in the room, whether they'll be dissenting or different.
All the things that Kathleen spoke about this morning and all those other issues around the outputs and the neoliberalisation of education, they are relevant in terms of the rise of the right and the role of community education in terms of responding to that. And Kathleen also referred to cuts to the community and voluntary sector. Austerity was used as the excuse, but really they started out as ideological cuts, really, because the sector was getting more mobilised and becoming more critical and having a voice and in democratic ways. So what happened when all those cuts happened was that it left a vacuum for the far right to fill. They're now tapping into the grievances of local communities, but they're not looking at inclusive democratic responses. They're looking at scapegoating people like migrants and the easy solutions to very difficult, often and complex problems.
I believe there's so much that we can actually learn from indigenous communities that is which can be actually integrated into GCE. Indigenous communities, most of their knowledge are actually cultural. They learn that through informal ways of learning. But there's one thing that we need to understand, because most of the education in today's world is actually done in a formal way, and by so doing that we are actually sidelining communities like the marginalized or indigenous communities. So this needs to be integrated to integrate the informal ways of learning within the sector.
What struck me about this packed afternoon was 3 points. Number one, we should seek spaces for critical questioning, particularly among people we'd be uncomfortable with, and listening to what comes from that. That's number one. Number two, we should be impatient. Impatient for global citizenship education to be included in policies, toolkits, and in practice. You are all wonderful people. You're working on the edges. You're doing wonderful things. But there's a danger that we become complacent and, in a sense, more comfortable in our marginalisation rather than seeking to be part of the mainstream. So continually push that. And third point is the importance of relations.